Please be seated. Annie Dillard is in her 70s now, but she was only 29 years old when she won the Pulitzer for her nonfiction narrative, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. I don't remember when I first discovered this book, but I was so enchanted. I've read it, or at least parts of it, numerous times over the decades since its publication in 1974. On her official website, Dillard lists her religion as none. But it seems to me that she is not capable of thinking about or writing about anything but God. It's just that her God is so much bigger and, frankly, so much stranger than anything that can be captured in even the most elegant creed. Our life is a faint tracing on the surface of mystery, she writes. Pilgrim at Tinker Creek is her exploration of that mystery in the context of her tiny corner of the world alongside an unremarkable creek not far from Roanoke, Virginia. One of my favorite passages is a story she tells on herself as a child growing up in Pittsburgh. She would take a penny, not of insignificant value to a 6-year-old in the 50s, and hide it in the crook of a tree or a crack in the sidewalk for any random passerby to find. She would then draw chalk arrows on the sidewalk, pointing to the hidden treasure. When she learned to write, she added prompts. Money this way, or surprise ahead. She wouldn't stay around to see who found her penny. She simply planted it and then went on her way, not giving her little project another thought until the next time she was moved to hide a penny. Since the day I read this story for the first time, I have never come across a stray penny without picking it up. On walks in my neighborhood, in parking lots, under sofa cushions, on the floor of the car. I then drop the found pennies in a vase that lives on a shelf in the living room. Those pennies remind me somehow of gratuitous grace. In today's gospel lesson, Jesus goes out of the house and sits beside the sea. As the inevitable crowds gather, he climbs into a boat, and from there he begins to tell one of his already famous stories. We know those stories as parables. This particular one, you've heard it many times, is about a sower who, if you ask me, doesn't behave anything like a real farmer. Any sower with good sense would till the field and amend the soil and install an irrigation system and have a pest management plan before he ever thought about sowing. If the sower was really on her game, she would have a solid business plan with market trends analysis, crop yield estimates, sales strategies, and a risk management plan. But this sower does none of that. He seems to throw caution along with the seeds to the wind. And of course, we know that best farming practices are hardly the point. But do you ever wonder what exactly the point is? I wonder about Jesus sitting in that boat as he looked out over the crowd standing on the beach. I wonder if he knew what he was going to say before he began to speak, or if, as I suspect, He looked at them, and seeing their worries and struggles, their fears and heartaches, he spoke to their deepest longings in that moment. If you think about it, what else did he really have to offer? Immediately before, in chapter 12, Jesus has been tangling with the Pharisees, who haughtily demand to know, when he breaks the rules, just who he thinks he is. They accuse him and begin to plot against him. And his family has been anxiously looking for him, no doubt wanting to rein him in before he gets himself into even more trouble. Jesus, then, has no organized support, no money, no practical solutions to any of the problems weighing heavily on the hearts of the people before him. And so he offered, very simply, the one thing he had: a story. But not just any story, definitely not a story designed to entertain or distract, not even to instruct or persuade. A parable, a curveball of a story, if you will, that left his listeners pondering its meaning. Now, Jesus was not being intentionally obtuse, nor was he posing a riddle that you needed an advanced degree to figure out. He was evoking, in the midst of all of their misery and longing, a vision for a different kind of world. The world as God intended it to be, you might say, or to put it another way, the world as it really is when all that is false, the striving and greed, the violence and cruelty, the one-upsmanship and all the mischief that lets loose on us, when all of that falls away. In some of his other stories, Jesus names this world the kingdom of heaven. Listen, he begins. A sower goes out to sow. And then he spins a yarn about wild extravagance. He tells them on the front end most of the sower's seed will be wasted. But notice, and this is important, he doesn't blame the birds or the weeds or the rocky soil. He just offers his gift, period. He doesn't stay around to see what happens, and he doesn't coerce anyone into a particular response. It's strictly a take it or leave it deal. About her childhood experience, Annie Dillard reflects, and this is from the book. The world, she writes, is fairly studded and strewn with pennies cast broadside from a generous hand. But, and this is the point, who gets excited about a mere penny? If you follow one arrow, if you crouch motionless on a bank, a Tinker Creek, say, to watch a tremulous ripple thrill on the water, and are rewarded by the sight of a muskrat kit paddling from its den, will you count that sight a chip of copper only and go your rueful way? It is dire poverty indeed when a man is so malnourished and fatigued that he won't stoop to pick up a penny. But if you cultivate a healthy poverty and simplicity so that finding a penny will literally make your day, then, since the world is in fact planted with pennies, you have with your poverty bought a lifetime of days. It's that simple. What you see is what you get. Dillard's parable, it seems to me, is getting at the same hard to pin down thing that Jesus is trying to say. A generosity which is infinite. A generosity that says there's more where this came from. The trick is to have eyes to see, or in the case of Jesus speaking to the crowds, ears to hear. Now, I have always heard this parable as a warning that I should try as hard as I can to be good soil so that good results can come from the seed planted in me. But what if we were to think of ourselves not as the soil, but as the sowers? What if we were put down, at least when it comes to loving the world, the insistence on results? As a friend put it just this week, plant a seed, harvest love. What if we stopped trying so hard and just loved? Most of us will leave this place today and go on our rueful way, unchanged. But come back next week, and there will be more good news, more bread, more wine, and it will flow from here the week after that, and the week after that, and the year after that, and on and on and on. If you find a penny, keep it. If you have some love to give, give it. That is my prayer on this most ordinary of days. Amen.